ShireSociety.com. In the year or so before I moved to New Hampshire, I was inspired by then State Rep Harriet Cady. She would propose these bills that would sort of, I would have ideas, in 2002 or 2003. Wouldn't it be great if... Well, then I would get to New Hampshire and I would find that Harriet Cady had already submitted a bill just like my idea, without us ever having communicated. For instance, I think there was something like a bill to exempt New Hampshire residents from paying the federal income tax. I'm not a big fan of bills, but as long as someone's going to submit one, it at least gives us a chance to draw new attention to government abuses, if the bill is designed to quell a government abuse. So Cady is now with RightToKnowNH.com, or maybe she runs it for all I know, RightToKnowNH.com. And they have provided the useful service of sort of summarizing people's testimony who go to the State House and testify on right-to-know bills. I would like to share some of that testimony with you. Some of it is actually from letters that are sent to various committees. February 6, 2018. Quote, below is a guest editorial by Donna Green of Sandown NH, a member of RTKNH. Quote, salaries and benefits are the biggest expenses in public education. They are also the biggest drivers for the continually increasing costs of running our schools with fewer and fewer students. In my school district, salaries and assorted benefits will cost us $52 million next year. That's 73% of our 17-18 budget. Despite this enormous expenditure by the public, there is no transparency whatsoever in how these salaries and generous benefits are arrived at with our teacher and support staff unions. Our negotiations begin with the school board assigning a few board members to the negotiating team. They confer among themselves and confer with the board as a whole. Unquote. I should interrupt here. This is actually not testimony. This is just an editorial she wrote. I think she probably wrote it for RTKNH. Continuing. Quote, the teachers union also assembles a few teachers. Presumably they confer among themselves and so on. So far, so good. Both parties hire their own lawyer. In the presence of the negotiating teams of their respective sides, the lawyers conduct the negotiations, entirely behind closed doors. Everyone involved is instructed to hold the entire process in complete confidence. With the assurance of never being contradicted, both parties will claim to their broader constituents that they drove a hard bargain. Did they? Who is to know? We, the taxpayer, are left with increasingly unsustainable bills for benefits we ourselves do not enjoy in our private sector jobs. It leaves you wondering just how hard your elected representatives actually did work in your interests. Similarly, union members are left mystified as to why and how their initial positions got changed, if they did. There is no reason we should be wondering. There is no reason at all that these negotiations should be done in secret. Every taxpayer and every union member alike should have a full understanding of just how hard their representatives and their hired guns have actually worked to drive a fair deal for all parties. This is hardly a far-fetched idea. A 2015 policy paper published by the Commonwealth Foundation, Opening the Curtain on Government Unions, listed 8 states that required collective bargaining negotiations to be conducted in public session. Unquote. And she goes on to list the 8 states. Quote, one rural county in Washington state last year, Lincoln County, insisted on opening its negotiations to the public. They were sued by their public union for bargaining in bad faith, but the court upheld the county's right to demand transparency. In the Commonwealth Foundation paper, senior fellow Priya Abraham argued, whenever major public policy or public money decisions are concerned, allowing public and press access to proceedings is crucial to transparent government. Moreover, transparency in government union collective bargaining is becoming increasingly necessary as public sector compensation outstrips that in the private sector, with the result being heavier tax burdens for working people. New Hampshire's Right to Know law, RSA 91-A, exempts collective bargaining negotiations from its open meeting requirements. This should be changed by legislators, but until then it is important to understand the difference between a permissible exemption and an absolute requirement. New Hampshire's law says public bodies may conduct their collective bargaining in private, but it does not require them to do so. School districts and other public bodies should do the right thing by taxpayers and union members, in insisting on negotiations in public when both parties are present. To be clear, this is not an attack on unions. The only parties threatened by sunshine are those who aren't standing up for the interests of their constituents. Unquote. That's the end of Donna Green's statement. And then after that it says, quote, Donna Green is also president of the School District Governance Association of New Hampshire. The SDGA's mission is to educate and empower elected school district officials to assert their lawful authority and be responsive to their electorate. SDGANH.org. So I think she wrote that editorial in support of House Bill 1344, which, quote, will eliminate the exemption for collective bargaining negotiations and require that all collective bargaining negotiations be done in a public session, unquote, according to RightToKnowNH.org. 2,000 liberty lovers have moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project. But there's a saying, my saying actually, united we stand, divided we rise. If you think the Free State Project is too centralized or restrictive, join the Shire Society instead. They're also recruiting people to move to New Hampshire, but they're decentralized and have no board of directors. ShireSociety.com